Good morning, and it's great to have you with us on Bihar election day, the final day of polling, phase 3 of polling. And this is where the culmination will take place. And after that, it's all eyes on results that come out on Tuesday. Phase 3 is critical, viewers, for the NDA as 78 constituencies in 15 districts go to polls. In the run-up to the third phase, we saw high drama and a bitter war of words back and forth between various camps. BJP star campaigner Yogi Adityanath reignited the Citizenship Amendment Act debate. We saw Prime Minister Modi holding multiple rallies, directly taking on Tejashwi Yadav with the double Yuvraj of Jungle Raj comment. And the biggest headline in the run-up to the third phase was Nitish Kumar's comment on the last day of campaign. The comment about last election during his rally before campaigning close had raised many eyebrows and got many people talking. But will all of this have an impact on what the voters want to choose? That's the big question. Now let's tell you what's interesting in this phase. We have our reporters from various parts of Bihar where phase 3 polling is taking place. They're at these poll stations. We will go to them to get you a sense of on ground what the voters really have to say. With me in the studios is our managing editor Vinay Tiwari. We'll also go across to Aarti Subramaniam, who will be joining me from our newsrooms with all the detailed analysis. But first up to Ayushman. Ayushman's in Darbhanga. Ayushman, have voters begun to turn up where you are?
Yes, Tanvi, in fact, the temperature out here has gone down a bit, and that is clearly seeming to be seen on the voters turnout. Brisk voting in the first hour. This is the Laheria Sarai area of Darbhanga, where we are standing right now. We wanted to go to a non-model polling booth and to look at the situation. Behind me, what you're looking at is a middle school, Tanvi, and people are coming to vote out here. Kosi region, Mithilanchal and part of Simanchal region is going to poll, and very, very crucial third phase for both the RJD, the Mahagathbandhan and the NDA is this region, 78 seats going to poll, Tanvi. We have seen how important this region is with the fact that Nitish Kumar trying to make an appeal to voters. We have seen Nitish Kumar halting here in Madhepura for 2 consecutive nights. His comment that it is his last election, an emotional appeal to people in this area in Purnia when he was addressing the poll is something to be looked upon. In fact, Tanvi, the telling images that we saw of people walking back to Bihar, this is the region of Mithilanchal and even Simanchal area where the migration is at its peak. People migrate to other states. You can see here the entire polling process is to be conducted out here. The people are given a mask out here, and then social distancing norm has to be followed. This is something what you are looking at on my right. My video journalist Yogesh Bhardwaj will show. This is a school, Tanvi. What we are looking at is a school, and this is where normal classes go on. How much of its situation has changed, that is for viewers to see, but all the claims of transforming the infrastructure of education, health. In fact, if you remember, we did a story of health from Darbhanga only. We know what is the condition of DMCH. So what all has been claimed on ground and how much of work has been done, that can be clearly seen. How much of that will impact voting, that remains to be seen. On November 10th, we will find out. But this is a very, very crucial phase for both RJD, who has its bastion over this region, and Nitish Kumar, who has announced that it is his probably last election.
Yes. And it will be interesting to see if people, like you said, where he made this comment and in rest of Bihar, especially in the 78 constituencies that are polling today, if people are going to take it as an emotional appeal from a man who's led them and governed them for 3 terms, or they're going to take it as somebody, like the opposition says, who's tired and wants to now retire, and maybe they want to vote differently. We'll only find out on November 10th. Ayushman, we'll keep coming back to you for more from that polling station, and maybe we can speak to some voters also as well after they've voted. But let me just go across to Aarti Subramaniam to give us the key highlights. What is it that's going to be interesting in phase 3. Aarti.
Well, good morning to Tanvi and all our viewers. This is the third and final phase of polling in Bihar. We're just 3 days away from knowing who the next chief minister is going to be. Nitish Kumar will of course be hoping that it's him and this could be his last hurrah after he very dramatically announced that this is going to be his last election. But he's a man known to make plenty of flip-flops. So I don't want to stick my neck out and say that this is actually going to be his last election. But the last phase, 78 seats going to polls. In fact, this is generally an RJD stronghold that is going to polls. So for the RJD, it's going to be very crucial to retain this particular area, retain the seats here. For them, the big headache is going to be whether the Congress is going to be able to poll any votes, or there's going to be a transfer from the RJD's votes to the Congress votes. But for the BJP and for the NDA, this is a place which they have not really done well. So it's going to be important for them to try and consolidate here to make inroads into this area. Now, the reason this particular place is an RJD stronghold is because it has a sizable population of Muslims and of Yadavs. Now, Muslims account for nearly, they are going to play a very key role in at least 25 of the 78 seats that are going to polls, whereas Yadavs also are going to have a very crucial role to play in this. Now, in this phase, there are around 65 seats have a sizable Yadav population. So the MY vote bank, which is known as the Muslim Yadav vote bank, which is the very key and the core of the RJD, is going to come to play in here. Now, also remember there is Asaduddin Owaisi and this AIMIM and RLSP and BSP, which are also in an alliance. It's not expected to perform any miracles, but there are fears that they could eat into that RJD vote, thereby helping the BJP, which is exactly why they're always accused of being the B team of the BJP. But this particular region, Simanchal, Tirhut, Mithila, these are crucial areas for the RJD, and this is their stronghold. So can they hold on to that is what has to be seen.
Yes, and like you said and you pointed out, Aarti, that there's a significant minority community population that will be casting its vote today, which is also why we saw Yogi Adityanath's comments in the last few weeks being countered by Nitish Kumar in this phase. And Nitish Kumar really trying to, respond on Citizenship Amendment Act and trying to allay fears that people who live here belong to this country and will not be thrown out, which was a bit of a deviation, and many thought it was a direct jibe at Yogi Adityanath. Aarti, thanks so much for joining us for now. We'll, of course, keep coming back to you. But let's begin, Vinay, with the most interesting comment that was made on the last day of campaign before this election. And if you think that's going to have any bearing for whatever Nitish Kumar thought it might.
You're talking the Nitish Kumar comment,
yes.
Right? Well, I mean, look, Nitish Kumar's comments, frankly, have only as much time value. And I'm saying time value because nothing in his mind lasts for very long. I mean, it's really about the opportunity that he's looking at. It's very obvious that in this election, Nitish Kumar is fighting with his back towards the walls. There's no question about that. I mean, I think he's realized it long back that this is not the election, that he had hoped it would turn into. He's in very serious danger of being actually number 3 in the charts, when he was, frankly, always, there was a time when Nitish Kumar tried to portray himself as a challenger to Mr. Modi. That was not very long back. And in a way, a lot of the other people outside of the state also thought that if there was a so-called third front that was emerged, Nitish Kumar could be a possible challenger to Mr. Modi. Such was his image. But a lot has changed in those 6 years, and now he is not only the B team of BJP, he is possibly now, in a serious danger of being relegated to the number 3 spot. And I think that is possibly why you can see that there is a sense of slight desperation where he's also taking out an emotional card and telling them it's his last election. It's a gambit. Whether it will work or not, I really don't know. But surely it's a gambit. And I don't think, and it also tells you that he's run out of, positions to take to actually try and win people back, because he's lost significant ground. And this is in many ways an admission that this is his final gambit, and if it, whether it works or not is a big question mark.
Yes, and also the fact that, on the same day he attempted to distance himself from Adityanath's comments about CAA. He tried to reach out to this population and take a very different stand from what the BJP or the NDA in fact does. Clearly he's feeling the heat, like you said, and we've been talking about it, that JDU might end up at number 3 as you think it might happen. And if they become the number 3 party in the state, he's clearly feeling that kind of heat already.
Oh, absolutely. Let me take an example from the IPL that is currently on, Tanvi, because it's easier to understand it that way. Look, this was the first IPL where the last team in the tables got 12 points. So they were actually technically in the game till the last 2-3 games. And then who ended up last? The most fancied CSK. That was the team that ended up last. In Bihar, it's a lot like that. You know, no team is, or no party is really pretty much out of the game. They all have a shot at par, so to speak. Even a party like LJP is positioning itself in a situation where they believe that they may be able, you know, to simply just go with the BJP, and the BJP just breaks rank with the JDU in case JDU ends up doing pretty badly. But of course, that also means that the BJP has to do very, very well. Their strike rate has to be really good for them to then look at junking JDU and looking at a couple of smaller players and putting their man in the seat in the Chief Minister's office. But a lot, and much like the IPL, again, till the last game, Yeoman was pretty sure who's going to reach the final playoffs. And in this case also, there are lots of ifs and buts, and there are a lot of counter-intuitive elements that exist even till now, which make it very difficult to predict. I mean, it's a nightmare of an election to actually predict in many ways. I think the only safe prediction that I have in my head is that the JDU is possibly going to be number 3. But outside of that, it's a very difficult one to predict. And that's why you will see that all the parties, and especially the BJP, has calibrated its strategy from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. There's been a clear change because they've learned as they've gone along that the pitch is not playing exactly the way that they thought it will play. They had expected the pitch to be fast and bouncy. It hasn't. It's been turning. There have been, you know, slow pitches, and that's created a bit of a problem for them. And you can distinctly see in Mr. Modi's speeches how he has calibrated and altered his strategy in each of the phases.
Well, even if you don't end up at the top of the table, you definitely want to be number 2, because for the third and the fourth, it's the challenge becomes even more difficult.
Absolutely.
And so that's perhaps what everybody here is also hoping. Let's go back to Ayushman at the polling station. I believe he's found some voters who've cast their vote and want to talk now. Ayushman.
Yes, Tanvi. In fact, I have got few voters with me who have just cast their votes to know what is the sense like. Sir, ये एक तरह से सीमांचल मिथिलांचल का एरिया है. माइग्रेशन कितना बड़ा इशू है वोट करते समय आप लोगों को लगा कि हाँ एक मुद्दा है जिस पर वोट ज़्यादातर मांगा नहीं गया लेकिन मुद्दा दिमाग में रहेगा?
नहीं, माइग्रेशन का इशू तो है. रोजगार उतना सृजन नहीं हुआ है, कोई फैक्ट्रीज नहीं लगी, कोई औद्योगिक वातावरण यहाँ बना नहीं. वैसे भी झारखंड के ये टूटने के बाद, हाँ, बनने के बाद बिहार की स्थिति खराब हुई है. लेकिन उस परिदृश्य में हम समझते हैं कि बिहार ने तरक्की की है. हाँ, बिहार ने तरक्की की है.
आप भी आपने वोट दे दिया है. आपके लिए क्या मुद्दे हैं इस चुनाव में?
हम लोग का मुद्दा यही है कि नीतीश कुमार है तो भरोसा है, और एनडीए है तो हिंदुस्तान है.
अच्छा,
इसी के साथ हम लोग वोट करते हैं. नीतीश कुमार हमारे मोदी जी आदर्श है हम लोग के लिए. वही दोनों है तो भरोसा है. भरोसा है तो
नीतीश कुमार ने खुद कह दिया कि उनका आखिरी चुनाव है. एक वोटर के तौर पे कितनी बड़ी इमोशनल अपील आप लोगों को ये लगती है? लगता है कि इससे कहीं ना कहीं वो जो स्थिति थी जेडीयू की, जिसमें एंटी इनकम्बेंसी की बात कही जा रही थी, उस पर फर्क पड़ता है नीतीश कुमार की इस अपील के बाद?
नीतीश कुमार ने कंडीशनल अपनी बात को रखा है. दरअसल नीतीश कुमार का काम अच्छा था, लेकिन उसके खिलाफ का एक बहुत बड़ा एंटी इनकम्बेंसी भी रहा है बिहार में. भारतीय जनता पार्टी इसको समझ नहीं पाई. बिहार को एक नए चेहरे की जरूरत है. मैक्सिमम वोटर यूथ है, नया वोटर है. उसके मिजाज का चेहरा चाहिए था, उसके सोच का चेहरा चाहिए था, उसकी सोच की राजनीतिक संस्कृति वाला व्यक्ति चाहिए था. उससे बहुत विपरीत का वो चेहरा है.
अच्छा,
हाँ, बहुत विपरीत का चेहरा है.
रोजगार की बात आपने की. तेजस्वी यादव का जो पूरा कैंपेन है रोजगार के आसपास घूम रहा है. नीतीश कुमार ने एकदम चुप्पी साध रखी है. बीजेपी ने कुछ रोजगार की अनाउंसमेंट जरूर की है. वोटर के तौर पे आपके भी घर में यूथ होंगे, युवा होंगे, कितना इफेक्ट पड़ता है वोटर के माइंडसेट पर इस पूरे सिनेरियो को देखकर?
देखिए, दरअसल ये बहुत बड़ा चिंतन का विषय है. मीडिया को भी इस पे गहराई से डिबेट करने की जरूरत है. कहाँ से 10 लाख रोजगार दे पाएगा वो? उसके पास स्किल्ड सर्टिफिकेट पर्सन है ही नहीं बिहार में. ठीक है. और जो डिपार्टमेंट्स बिहार के हैं, बिहार का शिक्षा विभाग हो, उद्योग विभाग हो, कृषि विभाग हो, ये डिफरेंट डिपार्टमेंट्स है. उसमें जो जगह है, उस जगह में तो स्किल्ड पर्सन चाहिए ना. उतने स्किल्ड पर्सन बिहार में है नहीं. ठीक है. वो उतने स्किल पर्सन नहीं, इतने स्किल पर्सन बिहार में नहीं है. नहीं है,
ये गलत बोल रहे हैं.
हाँ, ये स्किल्ड पर्सन तो है यहाँ उसकी कमी नहीं है. यहाँ रोजगार की कमी है.
रोजगार
सरकार
देने की बात तो कर रहे हैं
तेजस्वी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन कहाँ से कर रहे हैं?
बोल रहे हैं सरकारी नौकरी पद खाली है।
हाँ, सरकारी पद खाली है,
तो
ये तो हम भी बात मानते हैं। तो सरकारी पद की बहाली तो चल रही है ना। ये है कि वो धीमा चल रहा है, धीमा, लोगों के मन के अनुरूप नहीं चल रहा है।
तन्वी, वी हैव आल्सो गॉट अ वुमेन वोटर आउट हियर। मैम, आपने अपना वोट दे दिया। इस बार का जो चुनाव है वो जिन मुद्दों पे लड़ा जा रहा है, आपके लिए किन मुद्दे, कौन से मुद्दे ऐसे हैं जो मायने रखते हैं, जिसको सोचकर आपने वोट दिया है? कौन सा मुद्दा? अच्छा, कोई बात नहीं, ये बताइए कि जो अभी की सरकार चल रही है, नीतीश कुमार 15 साल से राज कर रहे हैं, उनको कैसे देखते हैं? और अभी एक तेजस्वी यादव रोजगार की बात करते हैं, विकास की बात करते हैं, उसको कैसे देखते हैं?
हम तो अभी तेजस्वी यादव को अच्छा मानते हैं।
क्या? हाँ, कैसे अच्छा मानते हैं? क्या
मतलब पहले किए हैं अच्छा ना, तो वही से अभी तो वही वजह से मानते हैं अच्छा।
अच्छा, पहले अच्छा किए।
हाँ, अच्छा किए हैं।
तेजस्वी यादव की कौन सी बात अच्छी लगती है, या फिर जो वादा किया गया क्या सही लगता है?
वही वादा किया है तो वही से लोग अपना कर रहा है।
अच्छा, तो सर, हाँ, आप बताइए कि आप बता रहे थे स्किल सेट की बात कर रहे थे।
हाँ, क्या मतलब, क्या पूछना चाह रहे हैं?
स्किल की कमी है।
स्किल की कमी नहीं है बिहार में। आपको क्या कहते हैं, इंटेलिजेंस की कमी नहीं है, इंटेलिजेंसिया की कमी नहीं है। यहाँ से IAS जाते हैं, IPS जाते हैं, सबसे ज्यादा आते हैं। तो फिर आपको
माइग्रेशन एक मैटर है इस इलाके में।
माइग्रेशन का मैटर है, उसका मैटर बड़ा गहरा है। अब ये बाढ़ आती है यहाँ, ठीक है ना। बाढ़ में तो बिहार सरकार कुछ नहीं कर सकती है, नेपाल से है ये विदेश मंत्रालय को देखना है, इसमें भारत सरकार को देखना है। अब बदनाम हो रही है बिहार सरकार, तो ये तो चलेगा नहीं। ये तो चलेगा नहीं। लोगों को समझना चाहिए कि पानी जो आता है बाढ़ का, तो कहाँ से आता है?
अच्छा,
नेपाल छोड़ता है, बाढ़ आती है।
ऑल इन ऑल रोजगार के मुद्दे पर सरकार अच्छा नहीं कर पाई है, फिर भी बेहतर कर रही है।
अरे साहब, कुछ तो कर रही है, कुछ तो कर रही है। हमारा तो ये कहना है कि कुछ तो मूवमेंट हो रहा है ना, स्टैटिक तो नहीं है।
सर, इधर भी
हाँ, बोलिए।
यहाँ जो है बाढ़ की समस्या को जो हल कर दिया जाए, यहाँ रोजगार की कमी नहीं होगी। नहीं होगी। यहाँ का मांस, पान, मखाना विश्व प्रसिद्ध है। इसीलिए
तो ये इस बार वोट करने के लिए आपके पास कौन से मुद्दे हैं? क्या सोच के आप वोट कर रहे हैं?
हम लोग तो विकास चाह रहे हैं।
विकास तो बहुत बड़ा काम है। विकास में क्या चाहिए?
विकास कोई भी मुख्यमंत्री बने, लेकिन यहाँ विकास करे, बस वही हम लोग का सबसे बेहतर है।
There you heard it, Tanvi, from ranging issues from the voters. Definitely, Vikas is a term which has been there in public discourse for a long time. That is what they demand. But migration and flood is something that we are hearing from the voters in this region. Back to you.
Yes, so well, development and employment for skilled people of Bihar, and of course migration being few of the big issues. Ayushman, we'll keep coming back to you. Sharon is joining me from Sahu Road in Muzaffarpur. In Muzaffarpur, Sharon, the last time it was the BJP that beat the JDU. This time they're fighting together. But what's the sense on ground? What are the voters saying?
That is right, Tanvi. In 2015, it was in fact BJP that was not in alliance with the JDU, and the two-time MLA of this area is Suresh Kumar Sharma, who's also the minister in Nitish cabinet. He is in fact the urban development minister, and whoever we have been speaking since morning, all of them have been saying that there has, even when their MLA is a minister who is of urban development minister, he has not done enough when it comes to basic amenities like infrastructure and road. And you can see people, there are about 2 through 3 polling booths within this polytechnic college. Sir, आप क्या समस्याएं हैं मुजफ्फरपुर की?
यहाँ जैसे सुरेश शर्मा यहाँ मंत्री रह चुके हैं, लेकिन वैसा जो काम होना चाहिए उतना हुआ नहीं, विकास हुआ नहीं। जैसे बरसात में देखिए पानी का समस्या हो जाता है, लग जाता है, फिर सड़क नाला का वही स्थिति है, और लास्ट टाइम में ये सब सड़क नाला ये सब बना है। बस
वही हम देख रहे थे कि जब हम अंदर भी आ रहे थे, रोड भी बिल्कुल कच्चा रोड बना हुआ है, पॉलीटेक्निक कॉलेज है, लेकिन एक पेवमेंट भी नहीं है ढंग से, पूरा कीचड़ है हर जगह। तो एक मंत्री के हिसाब से आपको लगता नहीं आपके क्षेत्र में अच्छा काम?
जी नहीं, वैसा जितना होना चाहिए था काम वैसा हुआ नहीं है।
So clearly, people have been in fact complaining that there is not enough work, even when they have an MLA who is a sitting minister. There is not enough development work that has been done. Sir, आप क्या मुद्दा दिमाग में लेके आज वोट करने आए हैं यहाँ पे?
जी
आप यहाँ पे आज वोट करने आए हैं, क्या मुद्दे दिमाग में रख के वोट करने आए हैं?
हम यहाँ पेट्रोलिंग मजिस्ट्रेट के रूप
अच्छा,
में
पेट्रोलिंग के लिए आए हैं. So clearly, there are number of people. We'll try to speak to them while they are in fact casting their vote. सर सर आपकी क्या समस्याएं हैं मुजफ्फरपुर में यहाँ पे?
समस्या तो ठीक ही है, मिला जुला के विकास के लिए वोट डालेंगे.
विकास के लिए वोट डालेंगे. ये काफी लोग ना मंत्री जी से यहाँ जो सुरेश कुमार शर्मा है उनसे काफी नाराज हैं कि कोई डेवलपमेंट नहीं हुआ है.
अब वो अपना अपना स्वभाव है किसी का, जो क्या करते हैं ना करते हैं बस.
आपकी क्या समस्या है, आप क्या दिमाग में रखते हैं?
जो कर रहे हैं सही कर रहे हैं,
जो कर रहे हैं सही कर रहे हैं एकदम.
मिला जुला के चल रहा है.
So there are in fact mixed opinion that are of course coming, but it is in fact Suresh Kumar Sharma, who was in fact a two-time MLA from this area, and he was at that point in 2015 he was pitted against JDU's candidate Bijendra Chaudhary. This time Bijendra Chaudhary is a candidate of the Congress party, so it's going to be a very interesting contest that we will be seeing from Muzaffarpur. Secondly, Tanvi, when we talk about Muzaffarpur, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is the Muzaffarpur shelter home case. We have seen the case that happened in 2018. There are still a lot of disappointment and anger among people that how did something like that happen? In the entire country was angry over the Muzaffar shelter home, and even then Nitish Kumar has given ticket to Manju Verma, who was one of the Manju Verma's husband was linked to this main accused Brajesh Thakur, who was involved in the whole shelter home case. So there is of course disappointment among people, but at the same time local issues are going to be something that is going to be in focus here. Unemployment, infrastructure, road. Right now where I am reporting from is a polytechnic college, and I want to ask my camera person to pan and show you there is not even a proper pavement for the people to walk in to the polling booth. This is a town. We are not talking about a rural area. This is an urban area. You can see there is no proper infrastructure or road that has been the development work that need to be done by the sitting MLA or by the sitting cabinet minister that needs to be done is not really done over here. So clearly there is disappointment. At the same time, people are looking for a change. There are some of the people who have been saying that they have the sitting MLA has done enough work. So these are the situations that people are moving into. You can see this is the path towards the polling booth. Clearly there are a lot of problems that are faced by not just this polytechnic college, but even outside. We were traveling for 2 hours from Patna to reach Muzaffarpur. The road conditions are really deteriorating. So these are some of the local issues that people have kept in mind to come and vote.
Yes, well, one thing that I don't know to what extent it plays in the minds of people, and we'll have a conversation about it later, is the criminal record of their candidates. Like Sharon was pointing out, and Sharon, thanks for joining us for now. Like Sharon was pointing out, Muzaffarpur saw that massive sexual assault and all kinds of torture that happened to young girls in a shelter home. That case that exploded a few years ago. Manju Verma, who was a minister at that time, was on the run for a bit. Her husband was directly linked to Brajesh Thakur, who is the key accused in the case. The CBI had to be brought in. The courts multiple times pulled up the state for not doing a fair job in this case. At that time, she was suspended, but she's been brought back and given a ticket. But if you really talk about criminal record, over 70% of the candidates of RJD in phase 3 have criminal records against them. More than half of them have serious criminal cases against them. Serious criminal cases would mean attempts to murder, kidnapping, abduction, or even a rape charge. The other parties follow, but they aren't too far behind. That's how, unfortunately, it is for the people of Bihar. Their choice isn't very clean when it comes to their candidates. We're going to take a very short break. We'll come back with lots more. Stay with us on this special broadcast.